Welcome to the Silent Epidemic by Omniotherapy. I'm your host, Hatice Mehmet Quirk. Today we're speaking with Alex Clapp, Managing Director of both County Cost Consultants and Claritee, a company reshaping how organisations approach mental health, sober events and workplace training. Alex's journey spans from training as a solicitor to founding a thriving law cost firm and more recently launching a groundbreaking wellness initiative aimed at modernising corporate culture. From navigating personal health challenges to creating change on a broader scale, Alex brings a unique blend of lived experience and professional leadership to the table. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for taking the time to come on.
Don't think I've ever been introduced as sounding actually professional before like that. It was a lovely introduction. I normally get, here's that crazy guy that's basically trying to change everything, and throw everybody, throw spanners in everybody's works because that's how I feel at the moment. I feel like I'm challenging, changing,
Yeah.
pushing, put my head above the parapet and being one of the few people that are willing to sort of stand up and shout about.
I suppose when you're trying to advocate for change, it probably does feel that way, right?
Yeah, listen, change doesn't happen overnight, does it? And ultimately, slowly things are changing. Slowly things are changing. Slowly things are getting better. But I'm very impatient. I wanted it all to happen yesterday, and I have to take a step back sometimes and slow myself down and think to myself, if I'd said to you 15 years ago that everybody would be meditating, doing sound baths, and if I'd told all my friends that as a group, people would have looked at me 15 years ago and gone, yeah, right, that's just what the hippies do. Don't be so ridiculous. But now it's like the world's moved on.
Yeah.
And that's over the last 15 years. So I'm almost seeing what it's going to be in another 5, 10 years. And I'm shouting about and promoting it now and going, look, guys, this is what's coming. This is where we're going to be. This is what we need to be doing. So yeah, it's a different way of looking at it.
Yeah. It's a challenge, as you say, sort of you've seen the progression, you've seen how people are adopting different practices to support their own mental health and well-being. And I think it sounds like what you're trying to do is to keep pushing to get more and more people on board with that way of thinking.
Yeah, listen, 100%. And it's took my own personal struggles and my own personal journey to make me pivot and to make me basically turn my life totally around. Uh, but also to take all the things that I did wrong, that I basically ran away from, how I dealt with things, to have spent a lot of time working on myself and basically learning, developing, realizing actually what helps, what works, to try and bring them and shout about and showcase what other people are doing. Because ultimately, I have this saying that we are stronger together, and we are stronger together, and we are all unique. And what works for one person won't work for someone else, but then something else will work for someone else, and it's about freedom of choice. It's
So it sounds like you don't promote the use of one method as such. You're very open to the idea that it's individualized. Everyone needs to find what works for them.
100%. Like genuinely 100%, because somebody will go to me, "Oh, how did you do this?" And I'm like, "That it's not about me. It's not about me. It's about you have to find what works for you." Because and it's the same with work or anything in life. I teach kids boxing as well. I volunteer and do that. And last night we had that very conversation in one of the classes where I said, we can give you as coaches every single tool. We can show you every single thing to do, but you have to find your style of fighting and you have to choose what works for you as a fighter. And whether it's a fighter, a football player, a professional athlete, everyone has their own little quirks or their own little ways of doing something. And it's no different to mental health. You know, I love boxing and I love training and stuff like that. And for somebody else getting punched in the head and,
Yeah.
getting punched all around the ring isn't exactly going to be their idea of fun. And
Mm.
people will be going, that is crazy. No, thanks very much. But that's my choice and I love it. And it's finding what works for you as an individual.
Do you know, it's funny that you say that, because I was speaking with a colleague the other day and we was talking about people's lack of understanding around how therapy works, because people have this idea, right, that they're going to go to their therapy session or their therapist is going to give them advice and provide the answers to their questions, right? And actually, it's not that at all.
Oh, yeah. So
it's literally what you described. We've got to meet the client where they've got to be met. It's individualized to what's going on for them. But if we started giving out advice, the advice that I gave to you wouldn't necessarily be the same advice I could give to somebody else, and it works. So we don't give advice in any way, shape, or form. We support your exploration of what's going on for you.
You're guiding. You're basically guiding, and everyone has to find the stuff themselves.
It is such a personalized journey. And I think it's quite worrying that people don't have the understanding around it in terms of what are they trying to achieve from their therapy. Because if you have that client that comes in, doesn't really have that understanding, they're almost built up this disappointment of, it's not what I expected.
But you've got to think, if somebody has never had therapy or never even thought about having therapy. So the first time I went to rehab, I went and I'd never spoken about any of my feelings at all for the first 40 years of my life. And I got there, and I've always been very work driven. So I got there and I got the head counsellor as my therapist, and basically 2 days in, I'd had a few assignments, and I actually remember this. I basically had done all my assignments. I'd been emailing him at 5 o'clock in the morning, every morning, the next 2 mornings. I've done this research, I've done this, I've done that, I've looked at this, I think I'm fixed. And literally, boom, I've done it, I'm fixed. I'm like, and he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, no, I'm genuinely, I'm all right. I've basically
I've got it all.
I've ticked all the boxes. I've done this assignment for you. There's my assignment. There's this, there's that. I'm all right. Thanks very much. And he was like, oh my gosh, you've got no idea. And I didn't. And I didn't have any idea as to what therapy was. And this is why I do what I do to talk, because I actually want to show people it is okay to speak. It is okay to, work through stuff. It is okay to know that we're all going to face different challenges, different feelings, different emotions. And I truly believe that if every single person in the world, not necessarily rehab, because not everybody needs rehab, obviously, but if every single person had 28 days of working on themselves, the world would be an amazingly better place. And I truly believe that, because nobody ever gets to stop
for 28 days.
For 28 days. Nobody ever gets to go, okay, so let's go back to when I was a kid. Has anything affected me? Has it, basically caused me to have certain behaviors, certain beliefs? Has it, has something that's gone on in my life, a breakup or, losing a loved one, or has it, had a bit of trauma? Have I, blocked it all away? Have I basically...
What's the knock-on effect?
Yeah, what's the knock-on effect? And has it caused certain ways for people to behave? Has it made you, be funny with people at times? Do you have no patience? All the rest of it. And it's a mad concept. But yeah, I think a lot of it is therapy. People still class it as, I don't need therapy.
Yeah.
I'm not having therapy. It's like, when it's probably the best thing you could ever do.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that about the 28 days, because doing the work that I do, I find that people even struggle to find 50 minutes a week, to go on that journey of exploration. So 28 days is a complete luxury.
And to be fair, in my head, so this is me all over. I agreed to go to rehab on the condition that I could take my laptop and I could work still, and I could do it was on my conditions. That was the only way that I would agree to go, that I was allowed a couple of hours a day to still work. I was allowed my phone. It was like, so it was like, because I felt like I couldn't step out of the world for 28 days. The world would fall apart. My businesses would fall apart. My family would fall apart. My kids would fall apart. It was like, that's how I felt. And it's such a weird sensation that actually, once you have stepped out, and to be fair, I've done 5 months in different rehabs in total around the world. So I've had 5 months outside. You know, I've took 5 months away and spent a lot of time working on myself. But it just showed me that I'm not the most important thing in the world. The
world can go on.
The world can go on without one person. Hey, I don't run countries. I'm not the president. I'm not, and even that, somebody else steps in. Somebody else steps in. You know, so if people can't find an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, a week, a month to look after themselves, then they need to have a little word with themselves and look a bit inward.
Yeah. Because really, also the other thing is, all right, I know you said you sort of had 5 different stints by the sounds of it.
Three stints.
Oh, right, 3 different stints.
So 3 stints, but one of the stints was 3 months long.
Wow. Okay, so you've done, you took that time for yourself and you worked on yourself. But how much of your life did that give you back?
Yeah, and this is the thing, isn't it? That I had 40 years worth of stuff to process. I was a very old-fashioned, old-school bloke that you never spoke. That you basically, I didn't allow myself to cry for 15 years, 20 years. I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't ever be seen to be upset. I would never show emotion. I would basically always block everything out. And you've got to think of the amount of emotions and stuff that I'd suppressed for 40 years. I remember doing my inner child assignment, and I spent 2 days in bed afterwards. That's how much it actually drained my body. It took, and somebody who would look and go, "What? How can emotions drain your body?" And it's like, are you joking? Are you joking? But I didn't know that. I didn't have a clue. I was like so lost or so, unaware of it. But yeah, it's been a journey. It's definitely been a journey for me. And I think it's spreading the message now, and trying to allow people to know that actually you have to look after yourself. Because if I don't look after myself, nobody gets the best version of me. So I could be trying to look after everyone else, which I always used to do, put myself last and running around like a crazy man, basically trying to make everyone else happy. And I didn't even know myself.
Just a quick break from today's episode. If you've ever tried to get therapy, you know how frustrating it can be. You're finally ready to talk to someone, but you've been stuck on a waiting list for months. That's not how mental health support should work. Omnia Therapy makes getting help simple. You can book a session with a fully qualified professional in just 24 hours. No waiting, no contracts, just real support when you need it. And at £40 per session is actually affordable. If you're struggling, don't wait. Tap the link in the show notes or head to omniahealthgroup.com to book your session today. It's funny because I always say I use this with clients in terms of there's a reason why they tell us to put our oxygen mask on first on a plane. And actually that premise doesn't just apply to an oxygen mask on a plane. It's in life in general.
1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. And I remember getting asked that question, and it's only been probably the last couple of years that I've actually seen, and it's only been from continuing to work on myself every single day that I actually see it now. I actually see that I have to look after myself first for my son to get the best version of me, for my family, for my loved ones, my friends, my work colleagues, for everybody else to get the best version of me. Because if I don't look after myself first, nobody gets what they need. Nobody gets what they need. And it feels, everyone has it in their head that it's selfish, and it's not selfish. It's totally not selfish. You know, the cleverest person can look after themselves first, because then everybody else benefits from it.
Because you're connecting not just with everyone else on a better level, but with yourself on a better level. So it's almost a win-win all round, right?
And genuinely, I can only go from like honest feedback and stuff. And other people have said, you know, you're in the best place we've ever known. You know, we're getting so much amazing stuff back from you, and you know, everybody is, you know. And to be fair, I've always had quite a volatile temper, up and down, and I know I've got, you know, I've got a fizz switch, or whatever you want to call it, that I can pop and stuff. But over the last few years, I've learned just to be at this nice, you know, where I'll basically process things, and something will really piddle me off, and I'll go steam up here. But then instead of, I'll like let it just simmer, you know, away, and I won't react, and I'll leave it for a day, 2 days, and then in 2 days' time, I'm like, I'm not even asked about that anymore. I'm not even asked. Whereas years ago, that fizz would go up, and I'd be like, "Wah!" And then it causes chaos coming back. Then it's like a massive thing, and it's like, wow. And it's nice, actually, just floating instead of the roller coaster.
Yeah, because in effect, you're feeling the feelings, right? You're noticing the impact that it's having on you.
Oh, I still feel the feelings.
Yeah. Rather than just reacting to the feelings and trying to avoid the actual feeling of the feelings by blowing up about it. Yeah. And you're noticing that the impact on you and on others is completely different. But most importantly, you're in a better space yourself as a result of living that way.
You know, it's really powerful to have. And don't get me wrong, I still have all these challenges. You know, my addiction calls me at times. That little devil on the shoulder is like tapping me on the shoulder, going, "Come on, come on." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, nice to see you. Go away now." You know, and it's like, but I'm not going to lie and say that doesn't happen. I'm like, I have it call me. I get cross, I get angry, I get sad, I get really frustrated at times, and I have all these feelings come into my body, and I'll let them do whatever they need to do. And I think I've learned just to allow it to process through, rather than react, you know, rather than basically be instant. I don't need to deal with something straight away. I can basically, and I always give myself that question of, how will I feel tomorrow? Let's not reply tonight. Let's see how I feel tomorrow.
A good night's sleep.
Yeah. Do you know what? And I can probably say 90% of the time, actually, I feel differently the next day than had I replied that night. And if I leave it another day, I feel differently again. And it's like, because what feels like the most important thing in the world actually isn't.
No.
Half the time. If somebody's forgotten to do something, or if somebody's made a mistake on something, or if somebody's, you know, forgotten something, is it the biggest thing in the world? You know, do you really need to be getting that irate
and animated
and angry and shouting and causing a scene? Or do you need to speak to them in 2 or 3 days' time and go, next time, just make sure you remember? Do us a favour. That was a bit frustrated. Next time, just make sure you remember. And you're still going to get you're probably going to get a better result, actually. You know, because you're going to say, that annoyed me a little bit the other day. You know, I didn't say anything because it's not the end of the world, but next time, can you?
Well, it's that emotionally honest conversation, isn't it?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about the work that you do.
Yeah, and you know, look, I've put my head above the parapet over the last couple of years. I came out of my final rehab coming up to 3 years ago, and a friend of mine, Bern, and I set up Claritee together 2.5 years ago. And Claritee, it's with TEE
Yeah.
for teetotal.
Nice.
And our strapline is helping you see things more clearly. And all we wanted to do was not tell anybody what to do, because I don't believe in telling anybody what to do, but to showcase and to give people the opportunity to come to events, all alcohol free, and to see what was possible.
Yeah.
And we've done individual events with Alcohol Change all over the country. We've done massive corporate events for thousands of people now, all around the UK. We have done a partnership. We did Steps Together Shine Awards, the UK first ever company awards night, alcohol free. Last year we had 250 people there, and we are just doing another UK first with Steps Together this year, which is a mental health awards night for shouting about and showcasing any company, any individual, or any charity that are doing good things, trying to help other people. And it's going to be alcohol free as well.
Nice.
And all we're doing is we bring like a real big, high tempo, lots of fun, lots of engagement. We make it, and the one in October is going to be like a sober BAFTAs.
Right.
Sober BAFTAs. It's going to have like 400 or 500 people there. We've got loads of celebrities. We're raising money for the National Association of Children of Alcoholics. We've got loads of big companies being nominated, and it's showcasing and shouting about people who are doing good things. There's enough bad stuff going on in this world that when people are actually trying to help other people, I want to be shouting about it. When people are actually giving good people a choice, an option, I want to be shouting. I want to be highlighting, because as individuals and as small little companies, we can't get huge. We can't get seen by everybody. But together, we actually can. If you take, for argument's sake, 10 small companies and you plug all into one big community, and you allow people choices, you allow people, to be seeing what is going on, what's available, it's amazing.
Nice.
It's amazing, and it's perfect. So, yeah, this is like my proper passion, where I can see what started as us showcasing everything ourselves, and we will continue to do that. But what we won't do is look to expand, and go huge, huge. I want to be promoting other people, just like what you're doing. That's why it was so important to me to come and speak to you today, because, when we've had the conversation, it really touched me what you're doing.
Thank you.
And I thought to myself, look, stuff like this, people need to be made aware of it, because I was very privileged. I'm very lucky that I could afford, with the help of my family, to go to private rehab and to spend this time working on myself. Not everybody's got that.
No.
Not everybody's got that. And not everybody can afford therapy, can afford counselling. So when you told me about what you're doing, it really touched me, and it made me think, yeah, that's like something special. But the only way that people are going to know is by having other people shout about it, and other people know, because you can't grow on your own. I always say this. I always say, I'm a massive advocate of other people, promoting other people, shouting about other people, because ultimately, the world's a tough place, and life is tough. Our individual journey of life is tough. Don't care what anyone says. We all have those moments where it's a bit challenging, a bit tough. I've probably pushed the boundaries a bit more than most. but and you don't want to go to where I've been. But people doing good things. Let's highlight it together. Let's shout about, whether it's a mental health app, whether it's the therapy, whether it's an alcohol-free event, whether it's fitness, whatever.
Yeah.
I do not give two monkeys what it is. If it's good for people
Yeah.
and somebody's going to find something that will help them in one way, shape, or form, I want to be shouting about it.
Just a quick break from today's episode. Have you ever felt like the kind of support you need just doesn't exist? Maybe you need help outside of normal hours. Maybe you don't even know where to start. That's why Omnia Neurodiscovery exists. We offer specialised, flexible mental health support, including intensive evening and weekend packages for people who need something different. If that sounds like what you've been looking for, don't wait. Tap the link in the show notes or visit omniahealthgroup.com to find out how we can help. So what was the response like to the corporates, like in the sober events?
You can imagine. You can imagine. So I've obviously got, and I've had a network of a lot of corporate clients and a lot of corporate friends, and all my friends went to me, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, we'll see." And they were like that. Everyone looked at me as if I had four heads.
Yeah.
And they were like, "There is no way in the world that you are going to do this." And I went, and the more that people said that, the more it fueled my fire. I was like, right, well, I am not being proven wrong, and I am basically going to do
Make this work.
Oh, well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I don't give two monkeys. I'm going to basically show the world. I want to be here inside 2 years, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. And I was like, and that's how I set out. I was on like hugely driven, and to the point where basically it was go big or go home. And we did our first one. We did a be the spirit. So effectively, you are the spirit of the night. And we did our first one at St. George's Hall in Liverpool, which is grand. It can hold sort of 500-600 people. And
nice.
We had about 350 there, I think, 350, 400. And it was this massive, big showcase event. We had celebrities, we had dancers, singers, it was huge. It was like this big party night. It was amazing, absolutely amazing. I just remember standing back at the bottom and thinking, wow, that was wicked. That was wicked. That was like wicked. And then the feedback was coming in from people going, I've got to be honest, wasn't sure, got to be honest. As soon as you said it was alcohol free, it was like, and it's the stigma.
Yeah.
Stigma, it's that old stigma, just like therapy. Everyone's got that old stigma that without Dutch courage, without alcohol, it's gonna be boring.
You need that glass of wine to relax at night and things like that.
Listen, it's that old stigma that it's like, and it's people have got to be willing to try things. If you're struggling, try therapy. If you basically come and try an alcohol-free night, what's the worst that's going to happen?
You wake up fresh in the morning.
Yeah. Do you know what though? It's bizarre because then we've had different companies come to them, and they've ended up connecting on a better level. And they've ended up now doing business together, and it's like, well, would that have happened if they'd all been drinking? They probably wouldn't have even remembered who they'd spoken to. They probably wouldn't have even remembered, what company the other people were from, let alone ended up, making that great connection. Or they wouldn't have known what they said, maybe. You don't know, do you?
Or waking up with that dreaded feeling of, oh no, why did I say that?
Exactly. Well, why did I say that? Or what did I say? What did I say? It's like, so, no, it's, and don't get me wrong, it's not an easy, I'm not going to say sell because it's not a sell, but all times are changing. Times are changing. You've got the younger generation, 43% of 18 to 24-year-olds aren't drinking. A friend of mine went to a uni campus on a Friday night the other week, and he phoned me up and said, "You're right, you know." And I went, "About what?" And he went,
They're not drinking.
"They're not drinking." And I walked past the bar, it's dead. He said, "I went to the gym, went into the gym, absolutely packed Friday night."
Yeah.
Friday night. And I was like, interesting. And I think with what the knowledge, the information, what's available these days to you, from socials, people, everyone has got really good at looking after themselves physically. The next phase is mentally.
Yeah. And I still find that they're in groups, the young ones, because I think you get those that are the teetotalers that are very much, I'm going to look after myself. I'm going to follow the guidelines and the information. And then you get the other one that just go absolutely mad for it.
Yeah,
and then it makes you wonder, where is their trajectory going?
Yeah, but then I think they'll come round, because I think I look back. So I'm 45. I look back to when I was 18, let's say 18, and I didn't go to the gym. I went out every weekend. I went out every night and drinking, basically being with my mates, played footy on a Sunday. That was about it. And literally I'd get there, hungover to death, probably puke halfway through the game, and then go down the pub afterwards.
Sounds very healthy.
Yeah, I know, but that's the reality. That's the reality.
Yeah.
And
that's, I suppose, what everyone was doing.
That was the norm. That was the
norm.
norm. We used to go to the park and, get drunk from whatever age. And that was the norm.
Yeah.
That was the norm. And so you grow up with what you know, don't you? And I think there's a balance, there's a mixture. You're right, there's a mix. There's sort of a third that are still raving and misbehaving and off the leash. There's a third that are in the middle, and there's a third that are just
away from it entirely. Yeah, and they're quite comfortable with their decision. And I think again that like generation where drink was so involved in every sort of occasion, a wedding, a birthday, a funeral, whatever the occasion, it was an occasion to drink, right? And then if you weren't drinking, it'd be like, what?
Yeah, but and you used to get questions.
Yeah, and now it's almost that thing of it's like, no, I'm just not drinking. And they don't even need to explain themselves, nor that should they have to. But it's becoming so accepted,
and which is amazing, I think, because then you still find with the older groups, like my era groups, they still question why you're not drinking, because it's been the norm for so long.
Yeah,
and especially in a work environment.
Yeah.
I was giving a talk last week at an event, and I was chatting to a corporate lawyer, and he said, it's really interesting actually, because all of our events are centered around alcohol. All of our events are, and we just presume that all our clients want to drink. And I said, presume's an interesting word, isn't it? And he said, but we find sometimes not many of them come. And I was like, oh, it's interesting that, isn't it? Yeah. So you're putting on these events thinking that that's what your clients want. You're never giving them a choice, but then not as many of them are coming as you expect. Maybe it's time that you started thinking about things a little differently. Yeah. Because ultimately we are all different. And, I looked at some statistics the other day, and 34% of employees are not going to work events because they're centered around alcohol. Yeah. Which is massive. That's over a third.
You can pick that apart, and that's just how my head works. Because are they not going because they don't want to drink in front of their employees?
Maybe.
Because they don't know how it's going to go?
Yeah, maybe.
Are they not going because they don't feel comfortable, because they're no longer wanting to drink themselves and they don't want to be around it?
Oh, yeah.
It's almost...
I think
it's a little mixture of all of it, I guess.
It could be a combination, couldn't it? Because, let's be honest, you put 50 people in a room and you give them 10 drinks each. you have got no idea
what's going to happen.
What is going to happen.
Yeah.
You haven't though.
Yeah.
And imagine you have had a bit of a tough week with your boss. Then you go and have 10 drinks, 2 of you next to each other. What's going to happen?
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows? Imagine that there's somebody, there's so many different scenarios.
Dynamics,
dynamics. And some people might go, well, actually, if I'm on the couple of nights that I'm going to have a drink, I'd rather be around my family, or I'd rather be around my loved ones where, I don't need to keep up with anybody, where I can just drink and be balanced and
have that comfort.
Comfort.
Rather than drinking and being on edge and on guard.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess from a work, and look, I spent 20 odd years in that industry where you took clients out, you got drunk, basically you went out with clients, you got drunk, you did this, everything was drunk.
Yeah.
And I've woken up, many times going, oh my God, I don't even know what I did.
Yeah.
Where am I?
Trying to retrace your steps.
Where am I today? Have I been here before?
Yeah.
And that's the reality of it. It's just changing, isn't it? It's changing, and you're right though. It could be for a multitude of different reasons, because you don't know.
Just a quick break from today's episode. Let's talk about something that doesn't get enough attention: mental health at work. If you run a business, you've probably seen it. Stress, burnout, employees who aren't performing at their best because they're struggling. The problem? Most companies don't know how to address mental health in a way that actually helps their team. That's where Omnia Corporate Training comes in. We provide CPD certified mental health training that's practical, flexible, and designed to fit into any workplace. If you want to invest in your team's well-being, and let's be real, happy employees perform better, tap the link in the show notes or visit omniahealthgroup.com to learn more. I think the thing that the question keeps coming to my mind is, if you're not going to that event because you're worried about how you're going to react when you've had a drink in front of your work colleagues, then you need to do something to address it.
But it could be how your work colleagues are going to react once they've had a drink.
Could be that as well. Yeah, maybe you've been out with them before and you don't like the way that they react. Yeah,
well, to be honest, because so now we're going to get into the debate. Because you go back to that, some women, men, okay? So basically everyone goes out, a load of guys start getting,
Larry,
drunk. Some of the women might not like it.
Yeah.
Some of the guys might be, and you've seen it. People try and snog people, all that office, awkwardness that used to happen. And it used to happen on a regular basis. I don't care whether people are willing to hold their hands up and actually say it did used to happen, because it did used to happen.
It did. And there was almost this, it's not, I think now people will feel more comfortable to come forward and say that wasn't acceptable or that isn't right. But I dare say there's still going to be a lot of people that wouldn't challenge the behaviour of someone in a more senior position to them, especially when there's drink involved, because I dare say the answer is going to be, well, were you drinking too? Well, because she's had a drink too, that means that she was asking for it. It doesn't work that way, does it?
Yeah, but then I'm going to flip it around and say a woman might act inappropriately with a man as well. And to be fair, I've seen that as well over the years. Where I've actually felt really sorry for the guy when somebody's really drunk and will not leave him alone, and he's almost like, this is really uncomfortable. This is really uncomfortable. So and if we think about it, 20 years ago, all the video phones and all the rest of it weren't available. So let's say everybody now
is conscious
over, what gets filmed, what gets recorded, what you're doing. Everybody has to be more mindful about what they are doing. The days of going out and a group of lads getting really drunk and running around the town naked, it ain't happening anymore. Because the CCTV, there's video footage, you know, all of a sudden they're all over, you know, every
Social
single
media.
social.
Yeah.
It's blown up and everybody's seen it. The nan's ringing them, the
Yeah,
mum's ringing them. What have you done? You've shamed the family. You've shamed the family.
Yeah, and it's there forever then, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Because even if it gets taken down, there's now this screen recording. Well, it gets the screen recorded, it just gets posted and posted. I mean, I was watching the shenanigans that went on at Ascot last week. I don't know if you saw. I was just like, what is this madness that is going on? Everyone's dressed up in these wonderful outfits, suited and booted, and at this glamorous event that royalty attend. And then they're rolling around like children. It was like, what is this? But again, all drink fueled.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's like, but then everybody feels like, because we all, deep down, we all suffer with a bit of anxiety. We all suffer with a bit of, you know, am I good enough?
Yeah.
We all suffer with, you know, well, what do they think? Everybody has that. Everybody has that uncomfortableness, and everybody has that self-doubt and all the rest of it. So everybody feels like they need that 1 or 2 drinks with the Dutch courage to just settle the nerves and make them, you know, and it's not until you actually do it again and again and you see, actually, I didn't need that. And actually, you know, and I always say, if you never step out of your comfort zone, you will never grow. You will never grow as an individual, you know, and I say it to everybody in work, in a work environment. Yes, you might be a bit nervous. Yes, you might be a bit like, you know, uncomfortable or worried, but unless you're willing to do it, you're never going to grow as an individual.
And it's funny, isn't it? Because if you think about it, these people are going to work with people every day. They don't have the Dutch courage before they get to, well, they shouldn't do. You'd hope not. Most people don't have Dutch courage to go to the office.
You'd be surprised. You would be surprised. You would be surprised. You would be surprised how many people won't talk until they've had a drink. Will be the quietest person. And then literally they go out on a works night out, they've had 5 drinks and they're running around with the suit jacket, swinging. I literally stood on the bar.
Life and soul of the party. And then, the quietest person in the office.
And then you go back in on the Monday morning, they're like that. So polar opposites though, isn't it?
And that's what it does,
Polar opposites. It's like ridiculous. It's but and I think it's the same with anything in life, that you have to be willing to sometimes step out your comfort zone. You know, because if you stay in that lane, that comfy lane, you're never going to grow. You have to have, you know, moments where it does test you, where it challenges you. You know, I say it to all of the, boxers, I say it to, you know, anybody in sport. You know, you've got to think that first time that one of the world champions is walking into the ring with 100,000, you know, knowing that there's 2 of you getting into the ring and one of you's going to lose. The pressure, the feelings, the anxiety, you know, darts, you know, another one, you know, any sport, anything that is one-on-one, you know, I think that's, because at least with football or rugby, you've got a team, you know, so even if you have a bad game or not your best game, somebody might prop you up. And that's where it's stronger together for me.
Alex, thank you for sharing your journey so openly. It's incredibly moving to see how you've transformed a personal challenge into meaningful professional change, not just for yourself, but for the teams and clients you serve. Before we close, what's one key message you'd like to leave with listeners, especially those grappling with stress, burnout, or the pressure of leadership?
I think the key message is that I don't know everything. And I haven't got every single answer. But what I am prepared to do is try different things. And I'm prepared to step out my comfort zone a little bit and go and try something, you know, and see, you know, and we're all unique. What works for one person might not work for someone else, but unless you try it, you're not going to know. And I've tried a lot of different things, and I had to find what works for me personally. And once you find it, it's a nice feeling, because it's then empowers you to be able to look after yourself. So yeah, I think.
Thank you. To our listeners, thank you for joining us on The Silent Epidemic. If Alex's story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned for more conversations at the intersection of mental health, leadership, and purpose.